My brother needed bail money, so they tried to sell my house. The night my brother was arrested, I was alone in the house my grandmother left me, folding laundry at the old oak table she'd refinished by hand decades earlier. Outside, rain tapped steadily against the windows, the kind that settles in for hours and turns the world quiet. My phone buzzed once on the counter. Then again, then again. I ignored it at first. There was a time when every call from my parents made my chest tighten, when I'd rush to answer even if I was exhausted or in the middle of something important, afraid of what ignoring them might mean. That reflex had dulled over the years, worn down by repetition. Still, when the buzzing didn't stop, I sighed and picked it up. 6 missed calls, 3 from my mother, 2 from my father, 1 from my aunt. That combination never meant anything good. I answered my mother's number. "Where are you?" she demanded, skipping hello entirely. "At home," I said. "What's wrong?" There was a pause, just long enough for me to know she was choosing her words carefully. "It's your brother," she said. "There's been a situation." Those words, a situation, had followed my brother Ethan his entire adult life. A situation with a teacher, a situation with a boss, a situation with a neighbor, always something that wasn't technically his fault, according to my parents. Always something that required immediate support, understanding, and usually money. "What kind of situation?" I asked. Another pause. Then she exhaled sharply. "He was arrested." I sat down. "For what?" "Don't start judging," she snapped. "You don't even know the details yet." I asked what he was arrested for. She lowered her voice, like that would somehow soften the reality. Assault. And resisting. The room felt suddenly smaller. The hum of the refrigerator grew loud in my ears. "Is anyone hurt?" I asked. "They say the other guy will be fine," she replied quickly. It was blown out of proportion. Ethan was defending himself. Of course he was. "Where is he now?" I asked. "At county. We're trying to get him released tonight." I already knew what was coming next. "And," I said quietly, "and we need help," she said. "Bail is set at $75,000. I closed my eyes. "That's a lot," I said. "Yes, well, that's why I'm calling," she replied. "We thought you might be able to—" "No," I said. The word slipped out before I could soften it. There was silence on the other end, the kind that crackles with disbelief. "No?" she repeated. "You didn't even let me finish." "I know what you're going to ask," I said. "And the answer is no." Her voice hardened. "You have money." "I have a house," I corrected, "and savings I'm using to maintain it." "You have assets," she snapped. "This is family." There it was. Family. The word they used whenever they needed something. Never when I did. "I'm not selling my home to bail Ethan out of jail," I said evenly. "You wouldn't be selling it," she said quickly. "Not permanently, just leveraging it. A loan, temporary." "I'm not doing that either." She inhaled sharply, then said the sentence that changed everything. "Well, you won't have to." I frowned. "What do you mean?" Another pause. Then my father's voice replaced hers on the line. "We've already spoken to someone," he said, "about the house." My stomach dropped. "What do you mean you spoke to someone?" I asked. "A realtor," he said, "and a lawyer." I stood up so fast the chair scraped loudly against the floor. "You did what?" "Calm down," he said, irritated. "You're overreacting. This is just a solution." "You don't have the right," I said. "The house is mine." "It's in your name," he admitted, "but it came from our mother." There it was again. The quiet rewriting of history. "It was left to me," I said. "And you're being selfish with it," my mother cut in. "Your brother is sitting in a jail cell, and you're worried about property." I felt something shift inside me then. Not anger, not shock, clarity. "I'm worried about boundaries," I said, "and you just crossed one." "You always think you're better than us," my father said, hiding behind paperwork and technicalities. This isn't a technicality, I said. It's the law. Well, the law can change, he replied. My blood ran cold. What does that mean? I asked. It means we're handling this, he said. You don't need to get involved. I am involved, I said. It's my house. He sighed like I was being difficult on purpose. We'll talk tomorrow, he said. Right now, your brother needs us. The line went dead. I stood there staring at my phone, heart pounding, replaying the conversation in my head. The rain outside intensified, drumming harder against the roof like a warning. They hadn't asked. They hadn't discussed. They had decided. And for the first time, I realized they weren't asking for permission. They were planning to take. I didn't sleep that night. I sat at the kitchen table long after midnight, the same table where my grandmother used to drink her tea and read the paper every morning. I traced the scratches in the wood she'd refused to sand out, saying they were proof of a life lived, not damage to be erased. My grandmother had been the only person in my family who never asked me to shrink myself. When she died, she left me this house, a modest 2-story place on the edge of town, along with a note written in her careful handwriting. You'll protect this better than anyone, because you understand what it costs to keep something whole. At the time, I thought she meant the house. Now I understood she meant more than that. At 2:14 a.m., my phone buzzed again. A text from my aunt. We're just trying to do what's best for Ethan. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened my laptop and I started reading. By morning, I had a sinking feeling that whatever my parents were planning, it wasn't small. I called in sick to work and drove straight to the courthouse. Not because I knew exactly what to do, but because I knew I needed to understand what they might try. The clerk directed me to public records. I searched my address, nothing yet, but when I checked Ethan's name, my chest tightened. The charges were worse than my mother had made them sound. Not a bar fight, not self-defense, a road rage incident, escalated, witnesses, prior warning on file. 75,000 suddenly made grim sense. I sat back in my chair, staring at the screen. This wasn't a mistake. This was a pattern, and they wanted me to pay for it. My phone rang again. This time, I didn't hesitate. Did you list my house? I asked the moment my father answered. No, he said, not yet. The word yet echoed in my head. But we're moving forward, he added. Time matters here. You don't have my consent, I said. You don't need to consent, he replied calmly. We're family. I laughed once, short and humorless. That's not how ownership works. We're talking about a lien, he said, a temporary measure. You can't put a lien on a property you don't own. We'll see, he said. I hung up. My hands were shaking, but my mind was sharp. If they wanted to escalate this, I needed to be ahead of them. I needed protection, not emotional, legal. By noon, I was sitting in a small law office across from a man named Daniel Moore, an estate and property attorney my grandmother had used once years earlier. He listened without interrupting as I explained everything. Ethan's arrest, my parents' calls, the talk of lawyers and realtors. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair. Do you trust your family? He asked. No, I said immediately. He nodded. Then we need to move fast, he said. Because from what you're describing, they're not asking if they can use your property. They're looking for a way to force it. Can they? I asked. He folded his hands. Not easily, he said. But people who feel entitled will try things that surprise you. That sentence stayed with me. First, he continued, we secure the house. How? I asked. We remove it as leverage, he said. Legally. My pulse quickened. What does that mean? It means, he said carefully, you stop it from being something they can touch at all. Outside, the rain had finally stopped, but I had the distinct feeling the storm hadn't even started yet. Pressure doesn't ask. It advances. Daniel didn't sugarcoat anything. Once people believe something should be theirs, he said, tapping a pen against his legal pad, they stop asking and start justifying. I stared at the framed certificates on his wall, trying to slow my breathing. What exactly can they do? I asked. They can't sell your house outright, he replied, but they can try to appear authorized, forged documents, fraudulent liens, emergency filings, especially if they convince someone that you're cooperating. I'm not, I said. I know, he replied calmly. They don't need you to be. They just need someone else to believe you are. That sentence landed heavier than anything else he'd said. So what's the move? I asked. We lock the door before they reach it, he said. Legally. He slid a document across the desk. A property protection trust, he continued. You transfer the house into it. You remain the beneficiary, but control is formalized. Any attempt to act on the property without trustee approval becomes immediately actionable. How long does that take? I asked. If we file today, he said, it becomes effective before anyone else can move. I thought of my father's voice. Time matters here. Do it, I said. By the time I left his office, the sun was already sinking low in the sky. My phone showed 12 missed calls. I didn't listen to the voicemails. I already knew what they'd say. The first sign that my parents had escalated came 2 days later. A man knocked on my door just after noon, mid-40s, button-down shirt, clipboard in hand. Hi, he said, smiling professionally. I'm Mark. I'm here to assess the property. Assess it for what? I asked, not opening the door fully. Listing, he said. Your parents contacted our office. I felt something tighten in my chest. This house is not for sale, I said. He blinked. That's not what I was told, he replied. They said all owners were aligned. There is one owner, I said. Me. He hesitated. They sent authorization, he said slowly. Signed. By who? I asked. He flipped a page on his clipboard and turned it toward me. My father's name, my mother's signature, and underneath them, mine. Forged. The signature was close. Close enough that someone glancing at it quickly might accept it, but I knew my handwriting, and that wasn't it. You need to leave, I said. His professional smile faded. I can't proceed without clarity, he said. I'll have to report this. Good, I replied. Please do. He left without another word. I locked the door and leaned against it, heart pounding. They had already crossed from pressure into fraud, and they weren't done. That evening, my mother showed up unannounced. She stood on my porch, arms crossed, jaw tight, like she'd rehearsed the conversation in her head and was irritated that reality hadn't followed her script. You embarrassed us today, she said the moment I opened the door. I laughed softly. You forged my signature, I said, and you're worried about embarrassment? We were trying to help, she snapped. You didn't need to make a scene. You sent a stranger to my house, I replied. That is the scene. She stepped closer. Ethan could be out right now if you weren't being stubborn. Ethan is in jail because of his actions, I said, not because of my house. Her face hardened. You've always hated him, she said. That's not true, I replied. But I won't ruin my life to clean up his, she scoffed. You're acting like this house is sacred. It is, I said. She rolled her eyes. It's just a building. No, I said quietly. It's the only thing I was ever given without conditions. That stopped her, just for a moment. Then she shook her head. You've changed, she said. Your grandmother would be ashamed. I felt the sting of that one. She knew exactly where to aim. She trusted me, I said. That's why she left it to me. My mother's voice dropped. You don't deserve it more than your brother. I met her gaze. That's the problem, I said. You think inheritance is a reward. It's not. It's responsibility. She stared at me like she didn't recognize me at all. You'll regret this, she said, and then she walked away. The next move came faster. 3 days later, Daniel called me early in the morning. They tried to file an emergency lien, he said. My stomach dropped. On what grounds? I asked. Claimed verbal consent, he replied. Financial hardship, family obligation. And? I asked. And it was denied, he said, because the property is now in trust. Relief washed through me, quickly followed by something colder. They're not going to stop, I said. No, Daniel agreed. They're not. That afternoon, my brother called. I almost didn't answer, but I did. You happy now? Ethan said immediately. His voice was hoarse, raw with exhaustion. What do you want? I asked. I'm sitting in a cell, he snapped, and you're playing legal games. These aren't games, I said. These are consequences. For me, he said. Not you. I closed my eyes. You don't know what they've done, I said. I don't care, he replied. I just need out. Then talk to your lawyer, I said. You could fix this, he said. One signature. One signature that would ruin me, I replied. Silence stretched between us. You always think you're smarter than everyone, he muttered. No, I said. I just learned earlier. He hung up. The breaking point came a week later. I came home to find a moving truck parked across the street. Two men stood near my driveway, glancing at the house. My parents' car was already there. My hands went numb. I parked slowly, heart racing, and stepped out. What's going on? I demanded. My father turned toward me, smiling tightly. We're clearing some things, he said. Just preparing. Preparing for what? I asked. For sale, he replied calmly. I laughed, loudly. You can't be serious. We have documents, he said, holding up a folder. Signed. I didn't ask to see them. I already knew. I pulled out my phone and dialed Daniel. They're here, I said, with a truck. Don't confront them, he said immediately. I'm calling the sheriff. My mother stepped closer. You don't need to involve police, she said. We're family. You stopped being that when you forged my name, I said. The movers shifted awkwardly, sensing tension. Sir, one of them said to my father, we can't proceed without owner confirmation. That's being handled, my father said. I looked past him toward the house. Everything my grandmother loved was inside, and they were ready to take it. I straightened my shoulders. This stops now, I said. My father scoffed. You think you can stop us? I didn't answer, because at that exact moment, a patrol car turned onto the street, lights flashing, and Daniel's voice echoed in my head. Pressure doesn't ask, it advances. But so does the law. What the law protects, silence keeps. The patrol car stopped directly behind the moving truck. Red and blue lights washed over the front of my house. Reflecting in the windows my grandmother had cleaned every Sunday morning without fail. The effect felt unreal, like watching someone else's life unfold from a distance. The deputy stepped out first, calm, measured, one hand resting near his belt, not threatening, just present. Then Daniel arrived behind him, walking with the kind of unhurried confidence that only comes from knowing the paperwork is already stronger than the people standing in front of it. What seems to be the problem? The deputy asked. My father spoke first. This is a family matter, he said quickly. No need for law enforcement. The deputy looked at Daniel. Sir? He asked. Daniel handed him a folder. This property is held in trust, Daniel said evenly. Any attempt to enter, remove items, or alter ownership without trustee authorization constitutes trespass and attempted fraud. The deputy flipped through the documents. My mother's face drained of color. That's not true, she said. We have paperwork. She thrust the folder forward like a lifeline. Daniel didn't even reach for it. You've already submitted forged documents to a licensed realtor and attempted to file an emergency lien, he said. Both actions are documented. The deputy's eyes lifted slowly to my father. Is that accurate? He asked. My father's jaw tightened. We were trying to help our son, he said. That doesn't answer the question, the deputy replied. Silence stretched. The movers stood frozen, one of them glancing at his watch. "I need everyone who doesn't own this property to step away from the entrance," the deputy said. My parents didn't move. "I said now," he repeated. They stepped back. Ethan appeared then, stepping out of my parents' car. He looked thinner than the last time I'd seen him, jail-issued clothes hanging awkwardly on his frame. His eyes darted between the lights, the deputy, Daniel, and finally me. "What's going on?" he asked, panic creeping into his voice. Daniel turned slightly so he could see Ethan clearly. "You signed documents asserting co-ownership of this property," he said. "Did you believe that to be true?" Ethan swallowed. "They said it was," he muttered, nodding toward our parents. "They said it was just paperwork." The deputy looked at him sharply. "Son," he said, "signing documents you don't understand doesn't absolve responsibility." Ethan's confidence collapsed in real time. "I didn't know," he said, voice breaking. "I just wanted out." My mother rushed toward him instinctively. "He's a kid," she said. "He didn't know what he was doing." "He's 24, the deputy replied calmly. "That's not a kid." Daniel spoke next. "This incident has already been logged," he said. "Any further action today escalates it." The deputy nodded. "This property is secured," he said. "No one enters. No one removes anything." He turned to the movers. "You're free to leave." They didn't hesitate. The truck engine rumbled back to life. My parents stood frozen as dust kicked up around their shoes, the reality settling in. They had lost control. The lawsuit followed quickly. Daniel filed for attempted title fraud, forgery, and intentional interference with protected property rights. Discovery was brutal. Emails surfaced, text messages, draft documents with my name typed, copied, traced, a notary stamp that didn't exist. Ethan's online searches for emergency property transfer without owner present. My parents' defense crumbled under the weight of evidence. They tried to frame it as confusion, as desperation, as family acting under stress. The judge didn't accept it. "Stress doesn't create entitlement," he said plainly, "and family doesn't excuse fraud." The ruling was decisive. The trust was reaffirmed. Restraining orders were issued preventing my parents and Ethan from contacting me regarding the property.